This is Kenny Williamson, and welcome back to another episode of Melchizedek Chronicles. In today's episode, I have a very special guest on the line here, and his name is Dave. He has a website called flatearthdave.com. So, Flat Earth Dave is a obvious person who wants to tell you all about Flat Earth. And so I've been very interested in this subject here recently and doing a little research on it. So I contacted Flat Earth Dave, and he is going to be a guest today, and we're going to do just a little bit of talking about it. So give it a listen. Let me know what you think. And without further ado, here we go. Okay, I'm ready to get started. Are you ready?
Anytime you're ready, we can go. Just anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, let's just get started. Obviously, my name's Kenny Williamson, and I have this podcast called Melchizedek Chronicles, and it's biblically based, and I know that a lot of the stuff you talk about, I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and you talk about the flat earth and more of a scientific thing, and don't really get onto the biblical thing, if I understood that correctly.
Well, I'm not the expert on the biblical side, but the biblical side is quite fascinating.
I agree.
And my co-host of the Flat Earth podcast, he comes from the biblical side, so we have a proper mix of everything you need.
Good. Well, I have just recently been kind of introduced to this flat earth thing. I have been around a while, and I'm educated, and I have a commercial pilot's license, and I have never even considered flat earth, never even considered it. And I guess the reason is because I was always taught it was a globe. I have a globe in my office. Just never thought about it, and just thought the earth must be so big you just can't tell. And it wasn't until recently somebody that was actually working on my website had mentioned it to me, and I was like, no, don't believe it. That's ridiculous. And I actually got online and did a little research and found your website and your app, your Flat Earth Clock app, and I downloaded that, and I've been watching a lot of videos on it, and I think I've leaned the other direction quite a ways.
Well, the more you research, the more you real information that you can find, which is very hard because it's very censored. There's no other option than to become a anti-globe flat earther. Flat is the earth flat. What about hills and valleys and mountains and trenches? Well, yes, it's a topographical level, non-rotating plane where water, the science of water, any large body of water at rest lies flat, right? So when you say new to the topic, how new? When did you first hear about flat earth? How long?
It's probably only been a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
We got a newbie here. This is awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, literally a month.
So here's the thing. Belief is the enemy of knowing. You can believe anything you want. I live in Connecticut. Where do I live?
You said you live in Connecticut.
Do you believe it?
Well, you're in the central time zone. I'd have to look on a map to verify if that's the case or not.
I'm actually not in the central time zone. I'm in the eastern time zone. But my point is, you can choose to believe it, or you can do some research and then know it. Right? You'd have to look me up, find me on Facebook, find my high school, find my friends, pictures, and say, well, he went here and here, and yeah, okay, he lives in Connecticut, which is true. So then it would be in knowing, but belief is the lazy man's knowing because it takes no effort. You can believe whatever you want. Earth is a globe. It's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. It's orbiting the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. It's chasing the sun at 500,000 miles per hour. The sun is going around the center of the galaxy at 2.2 million miles an hour. You can believe all of that. Most heliocentrists don't even know that's their science religion. Right? That's what they were taught in school. They were taught a religion that all of those things are true in this heliocentric, I call it the helio-nonsensical model. And people don't even look into it. The controllers did a great job at programming us to not even question flat earth. And when we do hear about it, we immediately dismiss it and refuse to look at any information. But some of us, like yourself, had the courage to look and realize that the entire foundation of their world belief is a lie, right? You're a pilot. Think about this. At the equator, on the globe, the Earth is moving over 1,000 miles an hour. Are you aware of that?
That's what I was under the impression of, yes, supposedly.
Yeah, the Earth is 24,901 miles around at the equator. It spins around once a day. It's got a point in the sky, relative to a point on Earth, where the Earth would have to be moving at 1,000 miles an hour, over 1,000 miles an hour to make it around in one day.
Correct.
Now, if you were just like a mile from the North Pole, you're going to spin around in 24 hours, but you're only going to do a mile distance circle. So that whether it's 6.28 miles later, or is it 3.14 miles later, you're around back to where you started from. So you're going much, much slower if you're parked on a runway a mile from the North Pole. So picture this. You're in, you can't go to North Pole. So you're in Northern Alaska. Northern Alaska is rotating at about 300 miles an hour because it's making a smaller circle around the axis of the globe. And you're on your plane and you're sitting on the runway and you have a tangential, is that the right word? Speed of 300 miles an hour because the Earth is moving at that speed. You take off and you fly to Ecuador and you want to land on a runway that's oriented north and south. How fast is that runway moving eastward?
Well, as if to the equator, it'd be 1,000 miles per hour.
Yeah. So how do you gain that tangential speed to land on the equator, moving sideways at 1,000 miles an hour?
Right. Well, how it was taught to me at Spartan School of Aeronautics in Tulsa, Oklahoma, is that the atmosphere is riding along with the Earth, and so it's non-moving. So you're in the atmosphere, and it's also moving at the same speed as the Earth, so it's indistinguishable to me or an airplane that we're landing in a crosswind of 1,000 miles an hour because the air's moving with it. That's what they teach you.
Yeah, that's what they teach you. And you know what they say? That because the Earth has been spinning so long and because it has a topographical surface, that all of that friction of the atmosphere has made the entire atmosphere from ground to the top of the atmosphere spin with the Earth, right? But meanwhile, you could have a summer breeze that can blow left and right and up and down, and hurricanes that can spin and move, right?
Right.
And you can have, but somehow it's all homogenized, stuck to the Earth, Velcro to the Earth. It's a solid, right? If you, right. Like air doesn't stick to other parts of air.
Right.
Well, so go ahead.
Well, the way I was taught this is similar, and I'm not saying this is correct by any means, but what I'm saying is I was taught that what you're describing there is similar to if you were driving in an automobile and you're driving at 100 miles an hour. Now, the wind outside is 100 miles an hour, but you get your windows up so you don't know it. And so then you're sitting there in your car and you can whisper to somebody and you can go, you can blow on somebody. You can blow on the back of their neck if you want to, because that air is traveling at 100 miles an hour in a protected atmosphere, if you will, a protected area. So you can drop a pencil straight down in your car, and it's not
an airplane also.
Yeah, right? and an airplane. It's not going to end up in the back seat. It's going to go straight down.
How is that air locked in position? How is it protected? How is it held in that position?
Well, obviously, in an airplane or a car, you would have. It's locked because you've got a shell around you. It's protected. Right.
So in your heliocentric model, is there a shell around the Earth holding the atmosphere in?
Well, no. See, now that's the thing is there is nothing to hold it. It's supposedly being held by gravity.
Yes.
And
gravity can hold air. Now they say gravity's stronger near the Earth, and the higher up you go, the weaker it gets. The farther away from the Earth, the weaker the Earth's gravity is. So down right where we're standing on the Earth, that's where gravity is the strongest, and gravity can hold that air down. Above the atmosphere is a space vacuum, a void that we can't even replicate on Earth because we don't have vacuum pumps strong enough to suck the air out of a chamber to get it down to the level that they say the vacuum of space is. The NASA has I think it's called the Sandusky vacuum chamber, and the walls are 10 feet thick, made of cement and steel. And that's so it doesn't implode when they suck the air out of it. And they can't even get all the air out of it because the pressure, right? So the vacuum of space is too strong to pull the air into its void, because gases always violently fill the available space. Always.
Correct.
Right? Except when it comes to Earth, gravity holds it down. But I can take a straw, put it in my mouth, and with the very, very, very weak low pressure system of my mouth and lungs, I can pull air and water up and away from the Earth at the closest point to Earth where gravity is the strongest. So the tiny, I wouldn't even call it a vacuum. I'll just call it a very low pressure system in my mouth can pull the water and the air up and away from Earth. But the Tor 17 vacuum, which is unimaginable, cannot pull the air into space.
Right.
Nowhere in the world does, like, if you had a box of air and you were in a room that all the air was taken out of the room and you open that box, top, bottom, left, right, the air is going to immediately and violently fill the room and equalize. That's what air does. That's what gases do. They violently fill the available space, except in space.
In space.
In space, when you get enough air, and like if you had a lot of air and you got it close enough, a lot of air, it all of a sudden has gravity, and instead of it violently filling the available space, it will collapse upon itself and make a burning star in a void and leave a vacuum in between. Do you see how silly this sounds?
Yes, it does.
This is called the heliocentric religion. It is a religion. In school, they have religious schools and they have scientific. They want you to pick either religion or science, whatever one you want, because both are religions. They just didn't tell you the scientific. Now, science is a real thing. Flat earthers love real science. Heliocentric believers love pseudoscience, and that's all they have is pseudoscience. Everything in our galaxy, everything in our solar system, everything about the Earth, all the other planets are based on the radius of the Earth. Do you know how they got the radius of the Earth? There's a couple different stories, and they're both cool.
The radius, is that something to do with somebody measuring shadows at different points?
Well, that's one of the stories. So Eratosthenes, 2,000 years ago, and it's funny, the heliocentric model, every proof they have is somebody did it 1,000 years ago, a couple thousand years ago, but no one's doing it today. All right. So Eratosthenes noticed on a day, this is the story. He's a great mathematician from, where was he? Syene in Greece. And he noticed on a certain day of the year that you can see the sun reflecting in the water at the bottom of a deep well. And that made him realize that the sun is directly over that well on whatever that date was. That's cool. That's a good observation. That's a good conclusion. And so he said, hey, if the Earth is a globe, somebody, let's say 500 miles away, would not have the sun over them at the same latitude. So he gets his friend and says, hey, go 500 miles away on this specific day, and we're gonna put a stick in the ground. I'll put a stick in my ground, and at noon there'll be no shadow on my stick, and then you could tell me what the shadow length is on your stick, and we could do some really good math and figure out the length of the shadow and figure out the curvature of the Earth, right? So here's the first problem is guess how his buddy measured 500 miles? He counted his steps. So he counted his steps in a straight line somehow for 500 miles. Just think of that.
Because obviously they didn't have any way to do mileage back then, so they were having to totally guess.
So he walked 500 miles in a straight line, right? And also, there are no straight lines on a globe. There's only straight lines on flat Earth. And somehow he remained at the same latitude, and somehow he knew the exact time to do it, because really he's like in another time zone. He might be in 2 time zones different. So he knows the exact time to do this, right? Because if he waited until noon wherever he was, he would have no shadow.
Right.
So somehow he did it, and he did the measurement. And Carl Sagan in the show Cosmos in the 80s loves telling the story and said, and he figured it out within 2% of modern day measurements. Wow, that's amazing. 2,000 years ago, they figured it out within 2%. Here's the point. Here's what they don't tell you is that same experiment works perfectly on a flat Earth with a local sun. Get 2 posts, stand up 2 bottles on your desk, 2 lighters, anything that'll stand up, 2 pencils, but you'll put them straight up. And hold a light about a foot over one of them and have the other one a foot or 2 away. And the one that you have the light directly over will have no shadow. The other one will have a significant shadow. You can do the same math Eratosthenes did and figure out the sphericity of your desk, even though it's flat. Just to show you, math, can be used to describe anything you want, a flat earth, a globe earth. But that same experiment works perfectly on a flat earth. On my app, there's a frequently asked questions section. I'm sure you found that by now. The question mark button. And there's a section called, and there on the bottom row, you scroll down, it says sticks and shadows. And there's a whole bunch of demonstrations of Eratosthenes and his sticks and shadows and how it actually proves the earth is flat.
Yeah, I need to check that out. I've seen a few of the things on it, but I haven't watched a whole lot of them.
You can find my app at flatearthdave.com. It's a $3 app. And the question mark page is the frequently asked questions. There's a top 30 some odd questions on there now. And all of the stuff is explained in detail in video form. And all of these videos are being hidden from you on YouTube. When you search for them, even if you search for them by direct name, you'll get propaganda hit piece, flat earth hit piece videos. If you search flat earth, I don't come up. You said you found me online. That was amazing, because it's very difficult to find me. But when you do, now you found something real. But the funny thing is, you go search your YouTube history for flat earth, only propaganda videos will show up, even if you watched a whole bunch of real videos. We're all shadow banned beyond shadow banned. Right.
You get a lot of those, it's like a flat earth something that's actually fake. It's like somebody has put up a flat earth site it shows up every time, but everything on it's completely fake. It's not what an actual flat earther believes. It's just complete total bunk.
Yeah, there's the Flat Earth Society. When Obama was in office, he mentioned the Flat Earth Society a half a dozen times in speeches. He says, we don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society. And, if people were alive when Columbus was alive, they're probably founding members of the Flat Earth Society. He wants you to go there because if you go to the Flat Earth Society, it's ridiculous and you'll never look at Flat Earth again. That's what they want. It's a government-run disinformation site. None of us believe any of that stuff. There may be a little bit of truth on there. I haven't looked in a long time, but it's a bunch of nonsense that'll just make you dismiss the idea of flat Earth.
Right. Well, I tell you, is one of the things that got me onto this is I have never believed we went to the moon ever to begin with. I never believed that, and so I have a couple of interviews with Bart Sabrell. And, he talks about, the fake moon landings. Okay, obviously. They're obviously fake. But he stops where you begin. So in other words, he's right on what he's saying. However, he's just scratching the surface because he believes in the Van Allen radiation belt. He believes there's outer space. We just didn't get to it. Okay, or we didn't land on the moon. He doesn't believe that the moon could be plasma. He believes that it's a dusty rock sitting in the sky. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many problems with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with that. So
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying, so I've been interested in a while, but what really got me interested, of course, I do refrigeration for a living right now. And so I work with pressures and I pull vacuums. I have a vacuum pump on my van and I pulled a vacuum on a system the other day, to pull all the non-condensables out. So I know all about pressures. I know all about vacuum. I have an EPA license to handle this kind of stuff. And whenever I was reading what the actual perfect vacuum is, they claim that's in outer space. It's like you said, it's done in tours, isn't it?
Yep.
And it's like, what'd you say, 17 tours or something like that?
I believe so.
It's some number, but whatever the number is, the perfect number, let's just say it was 10. The perfect number is 10 tour, and that's outer space, and it's the unbelievable vacuum. All we can pull down here on Earth, let's say, is half of that, supposedly, which is 5. And so, they hook up 5 of these Tor vacuums. They hook it up to some big vacuum pump on a truck, and they hook it up to a train car that's a tanker. And the thing's made out of solid reinforced steel. And they start pulling a vacuum on that thing, and it don't take very long. That thing just implodes. It just flat as a pancake.
Yep.
And then, so if you understand that simple thing right there, and you understand what vacuum is and how it works, like I do, okay, and then they show you the fake station, okay, they show you these guys supposedly floating around in outer space in this little bitty thin tinfoil craft that's made of what they claim aluminum, 1/8 thick aluminum. And they're outside of that craft is this vacuum that's double the strength we can pull on Earth, but the little bit we can pull on Earth literally implodes solid steel reinforced tanker cars.
Yep.
But you're
hold on. Yeah, hold on. So your tanker car, it just for people, because it always bothered me. The tanker car is the opposite of the space station. So if the tanker car collapsed when you suck all the air out of the tanker car, if you put the tanker car in a large room and sucked all the air out of the room, the tanker car would explode.
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes, it's exactly opposite. I mean, you're pulling a vacuum in it, and you're pulling a very small vacuum, and it literally implodes. Yep. So now we're sticking a so-called spacecraft in space in a vacuum that's made out of tinfoil, and it doesn't explode. It should blow up like a balloon. It should just pop.
Suits? How about the spacesuits? They're wearing these glorified snowboarding suits, and they go into space, and they don't explode. They don't just turn into the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, they should immediately puff up because of the vacuum.
There's a standing challenge by Mark Sargent who says, put him along with another astronaut in a spacesuit in the vacuum chamber and suck all the air out. And it's never been done. Only once has NASA put an astronaut or a person, an actor-naut, in a vacuum chamber. And before they got nearly evacuated, there was a leak in the suit, and he passed out, and his tongue started to boil, and they had to depressure it super fast to get in there. And and that's it. That's all they ever did. Then there's another video I have where a guy. There's a vacuum chamber with a glove built in, so you can put your hand in and work in this vacuum chamber. But he's got his hand in the glove, and it's moving it around. It's a very thick, clunky glove, like you could barely do anything. But he couldn't move it around. And then when they sucked the air out of the vacuum, out of the box, he couldn't even move his hand. He couldn't move his fingers because they just became so pressurized of the air trying to get in there or get out of the glove that he couldn't even move it. So. That's just the beginning of the problems with outer space.
Yeah. So, I mean, a vacuum, if, obviously anybody listening to this, if you don't understand, you pull something in a vacuum like that, it's very dangerous. And, literally I pull things into a vacuum in a heating and air system or a refrigeration system is to remove moisture. And how that works is water boils at room temperature under a vacuum. So I pull a vacuum on a unit, and the water, if there's any condensation, any moisture, anything in the line, it boils. And when it vaporizes, turns into vapor because it's boiling, it's able to be sucked out by the pump. So I can remove water out of a system by pulling a vacuum on it. And the water doesn't have to be anywhere near me. It can be way down the line somewhere. But once the line gets put into a vacuum, that water begins to boil in there. So I run the vacuum for X amount of time until it holds to a certain degree in microns. And, voila, there's no more water in there. So you put your human body in a vacuum, you're basically made of water. Everything on you will start to boil. Your eyes, your tongue, everything. Right. Then your blood
you're in a spacesuit that separates you, but the spacesuit would have to be pressurized, and we just talk about how that is impossible.
Yeah. So, the amount of vacuum, it's very dangerous. So in other words, even if you had such a suit, which I don't believe they have, you watch these so-called moon landings, and they're out running around, jumping, falling, hitting golf balls. It's like, do you realize if you have any problem, that vacuum will literally suck you out of the suit probably. I mean, it would literally just boom. It'd just be unbelievable. I mean, there's no way you would take a chance on getting so much as a pinhole in anything, because once the vacuum would literally, it would just kill you instantly.
Absolutely. NASA said the articles they put out saying the stuff they're finding in space, they found a galaxy of water that is, what was the number? It was like 300 trillion times more water than all of the oceans of the world combined. Okay, this is just ridiculous. This is water in space.
Right.
And it's in the shape of a galaxy. Why wouldn't it turn into a sphere? If, gas turns into a sphere, why wouldn't all that gravitational water turn into a sphere? But it's just nonsensical articles that people just short circuit on. Here's the problem. People read this stuff, see this stuff, and they're like, wow, I must be, I can't figure that out. I'm not a scientist. No, you can't figure it out, not because you're stupid, because it's stupid.
Right. Yeah, this is pseudoscience, not real science.
Right. So when you can't figure something else out, you have to say, are you stupid or is this stupid? Right. And you look at it, it's stupid. They say stuff that's unfigureoutable because it's unfigureoutable, because it's stupid.
Exactly. I believe that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think if you're a person that has any technical, ability at all and can understand this stuff, if you start doing just some simple mechanics just like that, that would never work. So now that that won't work, so now how do we have people up there roaming around in suits and in pajamas and everything else up in these supposedly pressurized, with this horrible vacuum on the outside that would literally implode this thing, or explode it, not implode, explode it. This thing would have to be made out of like a foot of solid steel, but instead it's made out of aluminum and cloth. You see things covered up with cloth, and like you say, they're in a cloth suit. Yep. I mean, you'd have to be in like some kind of deep sea diving suit to withstand that vacuum.
If you watch any of the spacewalks, they're out there for 8 hours, and they're tightening one nut or something. There's nothing they're doing. Like they don't do two bolts in that 8 hours. They're just flunking around, and it sounds like they're underwater. Lots of times we see bubbles floating in weird directions and stuff. Like, is this being filmed underwater? And it's apps. Think about this: the building of the space station would be the most videoed construction project in the history of construction. Because you got mission control, telling the astronaut, bring that over here, connect that to here, right? But somehow they were able to get all of these things connected, and there wasn't a single photo or video of it being put together. Not one. Not one. And somehow every connection is airtight. No problem. Even though the Russians made this module and the US made this module, and guess what? They made different doors on them, so they had to have somebody else build an adapter to fit in between those two modules, and everything works airtight. They were able to just zip it up. So we got this space station up there. They forgot to do it a couple years ago. I don't know if you're aware. China all of a sudden built a space station. They have it up there. And guess what? They forgot to video it and take any pictures of the entire thing being built.
But it's there now, right?
Yeah. The footage coming out of it is so comical. It is so comical. Green screens, wires, glass of water on the table. How do you have a glass of water on the table in the space station? Right? It's just like everything, and you could see, we catch them with all of their errors all the time. And the heliocentric religious cult leaders, they're just like, well, that's compression and cosmic rays caused the film to do that. The video, you don't understand. Filming in space is hard, and it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's so crazy. And now, NASA, which is SpaceX and Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin, these are still run by NASA. These are just private companies, so we can't really demand to know what nonsense they're doing. But I can spend days and days and days showing you screw up after screw up after screw up. When they threw William Shatner up in space, what a joke. What a total joke. Nobody's been to space. Nobody's been on a rocket other than Mad Mike Hughes, who was trying to be a daredevil and do the longest steam-powered rocket jump over a canyon like Evel Knievel. And he was going to go up 1,800 feet, and he ended up killing himself. And all the mainstream media ran with it, said flat earther tried to prove the earth and killed himself in a rocket. All the media all around, everywhere, still to this day, after years and years, it happened several years ago, are still using that as stupid flat earther kills himself trying to prove the shape of the earth by jumping 1,800 feet. There's mountains higher than that. Just take a commercial airline flight. You're higher than that, right? because he had a Flat Earth sticker on his, I think he needed like $7,000. So Flat Earthers raised the money for him and said, but we want you to put research Flat Earth on your rocket. He's like, no problem. And the mainstream media has to run with that story that stupid Flat Earthers tried to prove the Earth is flat and kill themselves.
Killed himself.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he was a daredevil. He's like Evel Knievel jumped the Snake Canyon. He wanted to beat that record, and he ended up dying. But has nothing to do with Flat Earth. Nothing. But the mainstream media will want you to think it is. And if the Earth was flat, you wouldn't need shows like National Geographic faking tests. We did this. We were doing a flash test where we flashed the sun in a mirror on the beach across a lake. And people, if you can see it on the other side, there should be, 60 feet of curvature blocking it. That's like me being on one side of my house and you being on another. And I have a mirror and the sun's high in the sky and I'm trying to flash you with the mirror. You can't see the flash unless you can see my mirror because there's a house in the way, right? Imagine a 6-story building in the middle of this lake, right? And somehow they can see the flash. How's that so? Because there should be 60 feet of curvature. This was at Lake, I think it was in Death Valley. It was called, I'm spacing on the name right now, but National Geographic showed up at this big test with Lake Balaton, at this big test we're doing, and they were doing their own test. And then we caught them. They had an optical illusion that they were showing us. They showed a helicopter going behind the curve, but they screwed up. We can see that the video was edited, where like why they were going down, these 3 ducks flew by, and then while they were coming up, the same ducks flew by again with the exact same wave patterns. So so there's no explanation other than they're faking it. And also they forgot to factor in the height of the camera. The camera was at like 5 feet. So the height that they supposedly went behind the curve wouldn't have been there because, you have to measure your height. Again, Stephen Hawking's faked it. National Geographic fakes it. Why would they fake it if the Earth was a globe? Why?
Right. You wouldn't need to fake anything. It'd prove itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now
the truth is the truth no matter what, and a lie only exists in your imagination.
Right. I won't go on this a different podcast, but I don't believe that Stephen Hawking that was there, he's an imposter himself.
100%.
That's not even the same guy. Okay.
The longest anyone's lived with ALS, I think, is 5 years. He went like 25 years.
Yeah, 25 years, and nobody even mentions that.
And when we started looking him up on the ALS website, he wasn't listed. He wasn't even there as somebody with ALS before he supposedly died. Right. That was just people are, well, why would they lie about that? They lie about everything. It's all just to keep you confused and lost and, and separated. They're literally trying to separate us from God too.
Right. Well, he's a perfect patsy. I mean, he's sitting in a chair. He can't speak. He can't move. He can't do anything. Now, somehow he's talking through a computer with a little wire off of his glasses. I mean, you saw the little wire. It's got a little bitty wire that comes down to his cheek, and he can somehow think, and this computer does all the talking. Now, I didn't even know that technology existed.
And he had a caretaker that can translate what he's saying. So Stephen Hawking would go, and then the guy would go, well, the height of the moon is 24,000. And it's unbelievable. If you ever listen to, find recordings of him and his translator, it is the biggest joke ever.
Yeah, he kind of mumbles around, and they're like, he said, the earth is not flat and there is no God. Next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, he's a genius. Well, how do we know? Well, look at him.
Yeah.
Just because he's sitting in a wheelchair and he may have been a genius before he got this disease or whatever. I don't know what he was exactly, some kind of something. That doesn't mean his mind is still there. And by the way, he doesn't even look like the same guy, but that's beside the point.
That's all. They do a lot of switching out of people. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
On the app, since you have the app, there's a button that looks like a spider web. That's called the More Resources button. If you long press any button, it'll tell you what the button does. So just for future reference. But on that button, if you scroll down, there's a section called Experiments. And there's all of these long distance experiments, the mirror flash I was talking about, and all these laser tests and microwave stuff and all of the stuff that absolutely 100% rules out the globe. It's all there, and you'll never find them, or not never, but very, very difficult to find them through a Google search or a YouTube search. So those are fantastic videos. And then also in that section, there's the Flat Earth movies. And that's amazing. If you go to flatearthdave.com, if you don't have the app, you don't have to get the app, people. Just go scroll down until you see a big picture of Flat Earth Dave. That's me. And it'll say Crash Course. Click that button, and there's a playlist of the greatest, I'll call them documentaries because they're more, most of them are longer format, and they're really good. Turn off Netflix for a week or a month or forever and watch those videos. It's scientifically impossible to watch them and remain a Glober. And I'm so confident in this. I offer 3 Bitcoins for anybody that can watch 5 of those videos or the daily video on the app for 2 weeks, and then give me a globe proof and you win 3 Bitcoins.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but you're not going to get it because
you're not going to get it.
Yeah, Earth is flat. I mean, here's the problem. There's people that know the Earth is flat, and there's people that believe they live on a globe. Nobody knows they live on a globe. And then there's people that will never look at flat Earth. So they're going to be stuck in their heliocentric religion for their entire life. And, and the question they ask is, well, why would they lie? I still have to go to work on Monday. What difference does it make?
Right.
On the question mark page, which is the frequently asked questions on the app, there's a section called Why the Lie. Those are my favorite videos of all. There's a whole bunch there. And watch those, and then you'll really start understanding why this is the most important thing in the world. How can I say that with wars going on, starvation, pandemics, and all sorts of stuff? It's because if you're lost in space, spinning out of control, don't know who you are, don't know that you live in God's creation, right? And if you don't know that, you can be fooled into believing anything. So all of the troubles in the world are because people are lost and separated. They'll divide and conquer. They divide us by countries, divide us by races, religions, parties, sports teams, everything. They divide, separate, keep us 6 feet apart, everything they can. Vaxxers, anti-vaxxers, everything. It's all just about division and getting us upset and getting us lost and getting us willingly to give them our energy. They want this loose energy from us because this is literally a spiritual war that we're in, and they want us doubting creation. They want us alone and isolated because loneliness creates this energy that they want. They want us scared and living in lack. If you live on a ball, you're running out of resources. You're overpopulated. Population's a lie too, by the way. You're afraid of nuclear bombs. Nuclear bombs are fake, by the way. And if you live with all of these things that they program into you, you are just feeding the machine. It's literally like the Matrix. You're feeding them what they need. Once you unplug from this, life is absolutely amazing. This is an amazing world we live in. And if everybody finds out that the world is not a spinning ball, everything changes. All governments collapse instantly, right? And people will literally find their harmony together. But because all this division and nonsense that they've been putting out there will all just fade away. It's coming.
I agree with that. I agree with what you're saying there. That's what I think is, like you didn't get into it a whole lot, but obviously biblically speaking, this earth is controlled by the devil, by Satan. It's being controlled by it, and he's the prince of the air, the Bible says. And like I've said before, I say it in one of my books, and I say it to anybody that wants to hear it, is, the devil wants you dead. He hates you. He wants you dead. He hates you because God loves you. So he hates you. Now, he's in control of this world. And so he's in control of these people that are in control of everything. And so Satan does everything opposite in the Bible. Everything that God says, he does the opposite. So God says in the Bible that the earth is immovable. So the devil says, no, you're spinning, you're moving. The Bible says, hey, there's water above a firmament, and that's where you're at. So the devil says, oh, no, there's no such thing as a firmament. There's gravity and there's space, unlimited space. The Bible says, the earth is God's footstool. We're the center. It's what he loves. Oh, no, you're just nothing floating around, and there's space aliens and everything else. And so it's like I've tried to tell people in the very short time that I've even believed it, is you realize the same people that are pushing the globe and pushing the outer space and the space aliens and all that are the same people that say there is no God. They're the same people that say you came, from aliens, seeded aliens, or you evolved from nothing, from a big bang. Those are the same people. The same people now are saying, oh, you can be a man or a woman. You can be anything you want. If you're born a man, it's not that you were born a man. That's just what the doctor gave you title. He was wrong. He just assigned you a sex. It wasn't what you are. It's just what you were assigned. So you can change that. That's the same people.
Yeah. So, 666 is the devil's number, and the number 6 is the devil's number, and 7 is God's number. The rainbow is 7 colors, and the pride rainbow is 6 colors. Interesting.
Right.
The earth moves around the sun. The inclination of the earth to the sun is 66.6 degrees. The earth orbits the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. The earth's circumference is 600 times 6 times 6 nautical miles. The speed of sound is 666 knots. The force of gravity on Earth is 666 newtons. The Arctic and Antarctic Circle are exactly 66.6 degrees off of north or south, right? Peggy Whitson, the record in space on the International Space Station, spent 666 days in space. The distance to the moon is 6 times 60 times 666. The diameter of the moon is 6 times 6 times 60. Sunset is divided by 3 degrees. 6 plus 6 plus 6. Was it? Yeah. It's 6 plus 6 plus 6.
Right.
Okay. And there's a whole bunch of other ones. The sun is 666 times brighter using the inverse square law of Venus. Venus is 464 Celsius or 867 Fahrenheit. The median of those two numbers is 666. Mars is
what a coincidence.
1.666 astronomical units from the sun. There's a whole bunch of others. How many times does that have to happen?
Yeah, the devil's number and Satan's number is 666, and It specifically says that in the Bible. And so everything related to this stuff that's bizarre, far out there, that leads you away from God, corresponds with 666. What a coincidence. The
National Aeronautics and Space Administration, if you add up all of those letters, it's 666.
Yeah. So I believe that it's all demonically Luciferian controlled. And the problem with the whole thing is, it's just, that's what the school systems teach, because they're under that, they fall under that category. They're being controlled by the same thing. So they literally teach you from the day you're born exactly opposite of the truth. Everything that the Bible teaches, it teaches the opposite. And the funny thing is, like me, I'm a Bible believer, and I believe it 100%. And so somebody comes along to me, when I was ignorant on this subject, and I was like, okay, we're on Earth. We're on a wet ball spinning in space. Okay. And they're like, well, how can that be? I'm like, well, I don't understand it. God obviously did it, because I can't understand how it's done. And so I just, I would say, well, God did it somehow, because God made everything. So I don't believe in the Big Bang or anything. God set these planets out here for whatever reason. I don't understand it. But once you start understanding that they're lying about everything, and then you actually go back and reread the Bible on those things, like in Genesis and everything, the Bible's been telling you the truth the whole time. You're just trying to apply what you've learned from a bunch of Luciferians to it.
There's over 200 verses
That's what you're
in the Bible
doing.
that talk about a level, non-rotating, non-moving, fixed earth.
It's right in front of your face.
Only Isaiah says the circle of the earth. What's a circle? A circle is a line on a flat plane where all points on that line are equidistant from a center point.
Yeah, it's not a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, a circle. There's a difference between a circle and a ball.
Right.
Yeah, so, when you try to apply everything you've learned from a Luciferian system that's designed for you to fail, for you to think that you're nobody, and designed for you to go to hell, because they don't want you anywhere near God. They want you all the way away from it. Well, then, I mean, yeah, you're going to believe in, space aliens could descend on us any moment. There could be an asteroid fixing to hit us at any moment. The Earth is fixing to blow up. It's just one thing after another. Sun's losing its, it's just, and the thing is I'm a big sci-fi guy. Okay. I love science fiction movies, and I've been really paying attention since all this flat Earth thing kind of came up. And I mean, every single thing that I watch, sci-fi or not, I don't watch anything new because I don't want to see the filth and the cussing and all that. I'm not interested in any of that junk. I don't care, even if it's an old show, like, whatever. It's got a globe in it.
Always.
There's always a globe in the background on a shelf somewhere.
Yeah.
And I mean,
they have operatives from the CIA that are advising props on shows, where they give them, hey, we want to have a prop designer on your set, and we'll give $10 million to your film. Okay, you're on, and they'll put all sorts of propaganda in there.
Yeah,
it's amazing. But here's the thing: we live in God's world where we have free will. They can't take it from us, so they have to trick us. So when we're born, they start out by sticking a bunch of poisons in us, and then they register us on the commodities market with our birth certificate, and then they tell us in school and even before school that we live on a globe. And then the government will say the Earth is a globe, because then they can make laws for the globe. Because if they knew the Earth was flat, then they would have to obey by God's law, which is natural law. Basically, don't invade anybody else's privacy or injure them or take from them. Just mind just be good to the person to the left of you and to the right of you. And it's very, very simple. But if you agree to live on their ball and live under their fictional, your fictional name, excuse me, then you have to play by their rules. But once you unplug from the heliononsensical system, you realize that you're in God's world. You're in the natural world. Nature is where all the truth is. And you can stop playing by their rules. People are so afraid of everything, death and taxes and everything. All of that's a lie. It's all lies. And when you unplug, then you actually realize, the true power that we have. That's what they're hiding. They don't want you to know that you are more powerful. One person awake is more powerful than millions of sleeping people. And when you're sleeping and you're lost in this heliocentric, powerless, godless, or distant God, diluted God world, if you want to dilute something, you pour it into something bigger. Like if you had a glass of milk and you poured it into a swimming pool, it's pretty diluted. You're not even going to notice it. Pour it into the ocean, it's just gone. Take the God's creation and dump it into infinite expanding space. They tell us that the universe is expanding at like 1 billion miles a minute or a second or something stupid, right? It's just expanding. It's just expanding forever into nothingness, right? That's a great way to dilute God. Right? Mm-hmm. Honestly, my whole life, I wasn't a follower. I didn't believe in God. I believed in science. I believed in the Big Bang and evolution. And then when I discovered that the Earth is intelligently designed, that it is flat, I had to reassess my entire life. When I was a kid, I went on a young life trip to Bermuda, and I was born into a Jewish non-practicing family, and everyone's going on this trip with this young Christian organization. My mom's just like, just go. It's okay. You can go. And so I went, and the first day they take us out to this cliff. I'm like, all right, we're going on a hike. And then they gather us all around. They sit us down, and he's going to do a little Bible study. I was like, oh, that's okay. I've never actually looked at the Bible. I don't know anything about it. Right. And the first passage he reads was a story where the sun fell, or the stars fell to the earth. I'm like, well, this is stupid because stars are gigantic. If a house was a star, the earth is a tiny pebble. How could a star fall to the earth? And from there, I just disregarded the Bible for the next 40 years. Okay. Because of that one incident. Mm-hmm. But if I had understood biblical cosmology, if I understood, the stars are small and close and fixed in the sky, I think the stars are angels, are angelic beings. I think that our souls live in the stars, and the stars are perfect, which is why they never move. Think about this. We're corkscrewing through space in all those different directions around the sun. The sun's moving. 80% of the stars in our 100 billion star galaxy are binary, which means they're orbiting around each other as they're orbiting around the center of the galaxy, kind of like if you threw a rock into a beehive. All those bees, those are the motions of the stars. But in all of our lives and all of history, never once have two stars changed positions due to parallax. Never once have two stars changed position. You know, like when you're going down the road, the trees will pass each other. The ones near you move faster. The ones in the distance move slower, right? Stars should be crisscrossing every single day. Never once have any two stars crisscrossed.
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah. So there's no way we're based on that. Like even looking at the stars are still in alignment. Like Orion, for example, lines up with the pyramids over there in Egypt. You know, if all this is spinning, like they say, how can those three stars still be perfectly aligned with those pyramids that are built 3,000 or 4,000 years ago?
Think about this.
Nothing's moved.
I'm going to test you a little bit on your heliocentric knowledge and just so everybody. So the axis of the Earth, that means our Earth is spinning. So there's an axis. It's not really a pole going through the Earth, but where that pole would go out, you know, through the Earth, that would be the South Pole and the North Pole. And the North Pole points to what?
The North Pole points, you mean like relative to the, like
to the North Star. North Star.
Okay, North Star.
Polaris. Yeah, it's called Polaris. And so Polaris never moves. So if you go out tonight and locate Polaris, it'll be there in 6 months. It'll be there tomorrow morning. It'll be there at noon. We won't be able to see it because the sky's lit, but it's always in the exact same spot relative to your position. It'll never move. It's always over the North Pole. Always, no matter what. Even though we're going 186 million miles from side to every 6 months from one side of the sun to the other, the sun's moving 4.4 billion miles a year, never to return to where it was before, right? Polaris is always in the same spot. It never, ever moves.
Maybe it's moving. Maybe it's moving with us.
Yeah, well, they say it's so far away that all the little motion isn't even noticed. It just, we can go hundreds of billions of miles.
Still see it.
But the other problem is they say that the axis of the Earth is wobbling.
I've heard that.
Yeah, so that wobble is 1 degree every 76 years. 1 degree. Now, 1 degree in the sky is equal to about 3 full moons side by side. So that's 1 degree, right? Do you know about the Georgia Guidestones? Are you from Georgia? No, you're not from Georgia.
No, I'm from Arkansas. But I have heard about them. I heard they got blown up here recently.
Yeah. Well, the Georgia Guidestones had a very narrow hole drilled through it, and you look through it, and Polaris is right in the middle of that hole. No matter when you go, you look through, Polaris is through that hole. Now think about it. We're spinning, whirling, and twirling, and somehow, how even just on a spinning Earth does Polaris stay in that hole? I mean, that's amazing. That's one axis, and then we're orbiting the sun, and we're the sun's moving. It stayed in that hole. It was always there. Then, if you think about the wobble, the Georgia Guidestones were built in 1981, so they've been up for over 40 years. And guess what? Polaris is still right in that hole. Well, it would have been a half a degree, 1.5 moon widths out of that hole, way out of that hole. But it was still there in that hole, which absolutely 100% proves that we're not moving, right? So we started making videos. They started going viral. Bam. Georgia Guidestones were blown up by a terrorist. And within a couple of hours, the bulldozers were there, took everything away, and there was never an investigation. How about that? Well, now, think about this. That wasn't the point I was making. The point I was going at is, so our axis is pointing towards a random star that we call Polaris. They say 2,000 years ago it was pointing towards Subin, another thing, but we just happen to live in a time where it's pointing towards Polaris, right? And we don't live long enough to notice it really moving far from Polaris. Cool story. But the other planets, they have their rotational axes, and none of them are pointing in the same direction. They're all going all over the place. Like Neptune points towards us, I think, towards the sun, and Jupiter, they all point in different directions. Okay. In the heliocentric model, what are all the stars going, all the planets going around? They're going around the sun, right?
Correct.
If you look at the paths of all of the planets, which used to be called wandering stars, all the planets, all the stars, even Halley's Comet, are all circling Polaris. They all circle Polaris. So those things are moving. We are not. Polaris does not move. They all circle Polaris. the wandering stars, aka planets, all named after gods,
pagan gods,
they're all circling perfectly in spirographic patterns, making beautiful flowers of life. Polaris. That is impossible.
Impossible on a globe?
Impossible on a heliocentric globe. Works perfectly in a sky where the stars are fixed in their positions and the sky is rotating and the wandering stars are circling around Polaris. There is no other explanation.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just in case anybody doesn't, understand some of that stuff, when, like you were saying earlier, you've got, the circumference of the Earth is, it's supposedly round. So, if you're looking in a straight line across this thing, because the Earth's curvature is involved, you can only see so far out before you can't see anymore because you're looking down the curvature. And so, that's what they claim, that if you're looking at a ship in the ocean and it sails away, you can see it go down, 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 down because it's sailing over the curvature. But in reality, it's literally just sailing away from your line of sight. You can't see that far. And if you get out like a telescope or something, you can still see it. It hasn't went right, over but anything.
Sometimes it will disappear from the bottom up and it'll get too small to see. And when you try to zoom it back in, the bottom half of it is missing. And that is because, let's say you're looking at a ship 20 miles away, right? It should be gone, but you can somehow still see it. The wave, there's little waves on the water 5 miles away from you that are going to hide that ship because they're going to be higher. Those little waves, because they're closer, are going to be higher than your horizon, than your land horizon. There's different horizons, and that's right. More, and so the ship is just going to get smaller and smaller, and it's going to be hiding behind it. Like you can hold your finger out in front of you and block an entire city skyline with your little finger. Hold it at eye level and just hold it up and make the bottoms of the buildings go away. And, from a distant city, and you can. That's your finger, right? So in the distance, that horizon it's just your horizontal eye zone, and things on the land can go behind things, but then the atmosphere also compresses down and becomes part of that horizon, and anything above it, stars, sun, moon, they'll just go beyond it and go behind it. Think about this. You're in, a city, big city, and you're standing in the middle street. There's 50-story buildings around you, and the sun is directly above you. Let's say it's noon. You see the sun up. The sun starts moving. It's now 12:30, 1 o'clock, and the sun goes beyond the building. So now you're in a little bit of shade, right? The sun's still in the sky. It's in the sky. It's just beyond the building. If you went up in the air, you'd be able to see it again. Or if you went backwards 20 miles, you'd be able to see the sun because the top of that building would appear to be at your eye level from 20 miles away. It would look like it's at your eye level due to perspective. And as that sun goes away, it'll appear to go down due to perspective. And eventually it'll go beyond the building again. But you'll perceive that as the ground and the curve of the earth that it's going behind because you've been brainwashed into believing that. On the app, on the question mark page, there's boats over the horizon and where does the sun go? Two sections, and both of them have great videos explaining exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, and that's, of course, they can find that, of course, on your website, flatearthdave.com. Is that right?
Flatearthdave.com. You can find me. You can everything. All my socials are there. Follow my my YouTube channels. My DITRH stands for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. Those are all nice short videos on there. And then Flat Earth Dave interviews. I have lots of video interviews, some audio interviews. Really, really good stuff. I just did Roseanne Barr. That was a fun interview, and I'm coming out later this month. I'll be on Jim Space. Oh. Jim the comedian, Jim Brewer, Space Brewer. Jim Brewer. Yeah, we went for 2.5 hours. That was a amazing, fun podcast, and it was a little bit mind blowing stuff there. But again, if you want to live in a ball in your ball religion, don't look at any of this stuff. But if you want to unplug and find out how it will actually change your life forever, look.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. I think that it's very eye-opening when you start looking into it. And like I said, I think that anybody that has any type of, I mean, if you believe in science, that's great. I believe in science too, but
real science. We believe in science. Flat earthers love science. It's pseudoscience that the Globers love.
Yeah, and it's like we're talking about the pressure. We've got supposedly the air sitting here on the earth, and gravity's holding it, but you can suck something up out of a cup with a straw, and gravity's not holding that liquid down. So why isn't the vacuum of space sucking the atmosphere out? It should be way stronger than any type of gravity we have here on Earth. And, you try to tell that to somebody, but, like a pilot, for example, they teach you that you've got a wing, and, the top of it's curved and the bottom of it's flat. And as that wing starts to move through the air over the top of the wing has to speed up to get to the trailing edge faster than the bottom. And so since the air is moving faster at the top of the wing than it is the bottom of the wing, its pressure decreases. And so it has a lower pressure on top of the wing than it does below the wing. And so, as Bernoulli's principle states, high pressure always seeks low pressure. And so high pressure is going to seek the lower pressure, and what's in the way? Well, the wing. So that's how this wing produces lift. And it's all about pressures and all about that stuff, but all of a sudden none of that applies if you put NASA in front of it.
Right.
And you put space in front of it. All of a sudden all those principles about pressure and all that stuff, that just goes out the window. Oh, that doesn't apply here.
Let me tell you.
Now we're flying airplanes with it, but don't worry about it.
Yeah. Let me speaking of NASA, let me tell you a story. I'm not going to, another researcher was talking, and somebody reached out, and I'm trying to not use any of the names of the companies or anything. And he said he worked for a big famous chemical company. And this was, I don't know how long ago it was, a couple, 10, 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. I don't even know how long ago. They said he was called to one of NASA's facilities to assess, to quote, a job. And so he gets there, and he says the security was unbelievably tight. And an armed guard takes him and escorts him into this building, and they go up through these offices, and there's all these cubicles. And as he's walking down the hallway, there's little lights on top of each cubicle, and each light is firing off, boom, 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 just like flashing like emergency. He's like, is there some sort of fire drill or something? He goes, is anything wrong? The guy goes, no, it's just you. And basically there was a thing that tracked any unauthorized people. So like if somebody was walking through there and wasn't supposed to be, then the alarm will go off, or it doesn't have their proper tag on or whatever, like nobody can go where they're not supposed to go. So he goes to the office, and the guy he's supposed to meet isn't in the office. So the guard says, stand in the corner, wait right there. And he gets on a phone on the wall. And the guy goes, well, I'm supposed to take you to hangar 17 or whatever the number is. And I just made that number up. And so they go. And he said the hangar was gigantic. The door was the biggest door he's ever seen. He goes in there, and there's gigantic cranes of all different sizes. And he was listing them off. He goes, this is a 50-ton crane. This is a 150-ton crane, whatever. Big giant cranes in this building. He goes, and then in the floor, and he said the floor was made out of a high-density concrete, like super smooth, high-density concrete. And there was a circular hole, a perfectly circular hole in the floor that was 80 feet deep, and maybe 100 or a couple hundred feet wide. Just gigantic, perfect cylinder hole in the ground. And they asked him, they said, hey, we need a coating on this. And he goes, what are you going to have in it? And he said, ultra purified water. And he's like, okay, what's the pH of the water? Guy goes, it'll be 7. And he's like, okay, we can do that. He goes, it has to be black. And they're like, okay, we have a black. He goes, and it has to have no shine. And he goes, we can maybe give you a satin. He goes, but it if we don't have a shine on it, it's gonna eventually fleck off the wall, and it's not gonna adhere. And they were adamant on it being non-reflective and black. And he asked why, and he said, well, we're going to be filming with lights down there, and we don't want any reflections on the wall. And then he figured it out that that's where they film their spacewalks, and the cranes hold the different vehicles in the different areas and move them through the water. And they film it in this black hole, in this studio, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they've got the space station a mock of a bit underwater, right?
Yep.
Same thing in a giant pool where they're filming.
This is like filming in total blackness where they can just do anything they want, not just the simple thing in the space station.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
it explains bubbles in space. It explains it all. I mean, this is all coming apart.
I mean, surely those black walls weren't the blackness of space, was it?
No, of course not.
Of course not.
I randomly threw out before, I said nuclear bombs aren't real. Are you aware of that?
Well, I have read that. I follow a guy on his website. His name's Miles Mathis.
Yep.
And I actually have a link to him off my website. And he has a lot of stuff like that on there. And I've read it, and I'm like, he makes really good sense. I think he's an atheist. I'm not sure. He doesn't.
Crow 777 Radio, CRROW 777radio.com. One of the greatest podcasts out there. If you really want to unplug from the system, this is the one that covers all aspects from health to fake space to everything else. He's done a bunch of episodes on the nuclear hoax, and they're all linked on my website for free. FlatEarthDave.com. Scroll down until you see the nuclear hoax banner and click that. And, a couple hours of audio listening, and you will know that nuclear bombs don't exist. They're just here to keep us in fear. Nuclear bombs make absolutely no sense. And what about Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 3 days later, the sandwich shops were open, the trains were running, they were selling flowers on the street, everything was back to normal. There was just a big bomb that went off, and there's video of them setting up TNT at Ground Zero the days before the explosion. So it's all to keep you in fear. Well, I also said I said something else that I wanted to clarify. I don't remember what it was. It'll come to me.
Well, hey, I remember watching a deal on that where, excuse me, where they're talking about I think it's Bikini Atoll. Is that where it was at?
I think so.
Is that how you pronounce that? Where they supposedly had detonated one of these nuclear bombs, and it showed, testing, and it showed like the next day or an hour later, this general out there, and they're all walking around and picking stuff up and looking at it. And they're saying, you don't realize the radiation level. If you just walked up there, you would probably fall over dead. The radiation would be so great. You couldn't be out there filming, walking around.
If it was what they said.
If it was what they said.
Radiation is like 11,000 year half-life. That's free energy. What are you talking about? Nuclear power plants, you know what they are? Nuclear power plants are real, but they're not nuclear. They're taking plutonium that when you expose it to water or air, it heats up and boils water, and then it cranks a steam engine. Nuclear power plants are steam engines. That's it. They're just high-tech boiling of water. That's all it is.
It made me kind of wonder on that. I've seen that before, and one of the videos I've watched, which it discusses the echo, it's kind of how the echo works in the firmament. These people go out and they're in these towers of this nuclear power plant. Yeah. And they're like, oh, don't worry. This nuclear power plant was never turned on. And the thing is, they walk in this thing and it's just dirt underneath that thing. You see this huge stack, this big power plant. There's several of them out there, and it's like, okay, there's a nuclear power plant. They went to all the trouble to build this thing, right? And they just walk in the bottom of this thing where the big holes are, and it's literally just dirt. And there's pipes and stuff in there. And it's like, you mean to tell me that big, huge stack is nothing but dirt on the bottom? There's no concrete or nothing? I mean, I thought this was a nuclear power plant. Oh, well, they never turned it on. It's like, well, obviously, there's just dirt underneath this thing. It's like it's all for show.
Yep.
I don't know what steam is coming out of this thing, but there's nothing underneath of it.
It's steam. They're boiling water. That's all it is. And this guy, Gaylor Winston Galen, Galen Windsor, maybe that's his name, Galen Windsor. He was proving that plutonium isn't dangerous. He like ate it, licked it. He swam in the pools because they were really warm from the decaying plutonium, and he was fine. He was fine. I mean, it's all, so what are in all of those nuclear waste bins? Who knows? Maybe they're getting rid of bodies, because who's going to ever check what's in those bins? Nobody ever.
No, because they're supposedly so dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all, people still live in Chernobyl, live and thrive. People, plants, and animals are still living there, and they're totally fine. It's all meant to keep us separated in fear. And, that's what makes their world go around. My world is stationary.
Right. Well, they do stuff like that. Of course, I'm sure you've heard of this. They'll put that stuff out in Hollywood and stuff right in front of your face and basically tell you the truth. But because it's a movie, that's just a movie, Yep. And I can't remember which one it was. It's something I watched. It's been a while back. It's some kind of and the same thing. They're out there and they're going to this area, and it's supposedly in Russia, and you can't go there because of the high radiation. And so they're going out there and they got their Geiger counters and they're going off the scale. And the guy's like, "Trust me, it's all fake." And they finally walk through this area that should have killed them, and then the Geiger counters go off, and there's some kind of thing setting out there that makes the Geiger counter go off the scale. It's not radiation. It's just some kind of electronic device to scare you away.
Nice.
Signs everywhere and everything. So once they get past that point, they just go back down to zero, and they say, "See, there's actually no radiation here. That's just a fake area put up. So if anybody does show up, they can say, see how high the radiation is? It'll kill you. Don't walk into there. It's dangerous." And really, it's all just smoke and mirrors to keep people from walking up there. And then, of course, they had some, something going on with weapons or something in the background, in the buildings. There were supposedly vacant buildings. The outside buildings, the outside of them look all damaged and broken windows, but you walk one level in and it's a normal building. It's all just to say, "See, that's an abandoned building in a high radiation area. You can't go over there." In actuality, it's not. It's all just fake.
Everything is fake.
So,
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, I definitely believe a majority, I've followed some people on that before, and they said, "I know you believe in fake this, fake that. There's the fake news and fake this." Is wait till you realize fake history. That half the history you've been taught in your history books is fake. It's literally propaganda, so you'll believe something that's not true. I mean, so they can get you to do something. And it's like, well, then you start doubting. It's like, well, did that even really happen? I mean, is there any proof of any of that? And then you go back and look at history books and they've erased it. It's gone. And it's like, well, I remember they taught this. Well, they taught me this. And, there's all kinds of stuff like that. And of course they'll blame it on, what do they call that? The Manchurian? No, not Manchurian. What's that effect?
Mandela effect.
The Mandela effect. They say, "Well, that's the Mandela effect." It's like, I think they're probably just changing the junk.
Well, there's stuff that are changing. The Mandela effect is actually quite fascinating. There are some Mandela effects that are just incorrect, bad memory, but there are stuff that's unexplainable. There's a thing called retrocausality, where you literally can change things in the past by preying on them in the past. There was some experiments done where some people prayed for some people in a hospital, but they didn't tell them it was 10 years ago. They just told them the situation and they prayed for them. And then all of those people in this reality are doing better than the other people that were in the hospital with them at that time that weren't prayed for. It's bizarre. Retrocausality.
I have to look into that.
Right up there with Mandela effect.
Yeah, I have to check into that. Of course, that's a whole nother deal there. There's a lot of rabbit holes you can really go down.
Oh yeah.
But the simple, just a flat earth, 99% of people, I'm going to say 99, it may not be that many, but you could literally take them up high and show them a flat earth and they still wouldn't believe it. They'd say no. Right. And, they've got moon people the same way. It's like if Buzz Aldrich himself said, "I didn't go to the moon, I lied." I don't believe you. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Like, no, I didn't. Yes, you did. They're going to argue with you.
People would just want to have their belief because it's easier to believe than take the time and effort to know. Hey, Katie, we got to wrap it up, but we're recording this on September 5th. You have my app already. Are you a cryptocurrency user?
I do use some. Yeah, I've got some Litecoin and some stuff.
Do you have a MetaMask wallet?
A MetaMask wallet?
It's called MetaMask wallet. So we're launching a crypto, and if you opened your app recently, you would have seen a pop-up for it, a video, and it's called Dome, where the dome is the limit, the sky's the limit, and it's coming out. It's actually out, but we're doing an airdrop. Anybody that puts their MetaMask in their referral section on the Friend Finder will get 33 million Dome on September 11th. And then after that, all of the referrals that you have referral points. I don't know if you've used that yet.
I have not.
You'll get a 1.5 million for all of them from the beginning of time all the way to this coming Christmas. And then after that, for the next year, you'll get $1 million for every referral. And this is quite amazing. You can find the information at domeshot, DOMESHOT.io. Also, just go on the app. The video will pop up and warn you. But all you have to do in the Friend Finder, which is the handshake, right? Have you gone there and seen all the blue dots?
Mm-hmm.
And that shows you where all the flat earthers are. On the upper left, there's 3 buttons. The middle button is your referral area. Open that up, and it'll show you your referral code, which is a bunch of random numbers. You can click the little pencil next to it and change it. You can change yours to Kenny, right? Up to 7 characters. That way, when you ever tell someone about flat earth and you show them some images on the app or videos and they go, where do I get that app? When they download the app, it'll ask them if they have a referral code. They type in Kenny, and you'll get a point, and those points are tradable in for the subscription. There's an $11 a year subscription for some of the higher end stuff on the app, and you can get that for free just with 11 referrals. But you'll also get all the Dome that comes with it, and this is this is no different than Dogecoin, other than this actually has utility. The way it's mined by waking up other minds. Every time you wake someone up to flat Earth and they get the app, it unleashes 1.5 million Dome to your wallet because you referred them. And listen, whether you believe in crypto or not, try it. It'll teach you how to move cryptocurrency between wallets, and who knows what it's worth. I got an airdrop of Bitcoin Cash when it first came out. I was like, what is this garbage? And I ignored it for a bunch of years. And then I looked at my wallet, there was $8,000 in there. I was like, whoa. And I sold it, and I was like very happy. So there is such thing as free money. I don't know what Dome will be worth, but it has a lot of potential. It's got a great community behind it. It's got very passionate people. And if you want that airdrop, you have to get your MetaMask wallet address in there. It's so simple. Download the MetaMask wallet on your phone, fill it out, copy the address, paste it in where in the referral section, and you're done. That's it.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll do that.
FlatEarthDave.com. That's where everybody can find all my stuff. Subscribe to my socials, my TikTok, fun stuff there, my DITRH, Flat Earth Dave's interviews. And check out the crash course, check out the app, and all the other stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
All right, Kenny, thanks, man.
No, thank you for being a guest. I really appreciate it, and I hope somebody learns something from this and gains a little bit of truth. That's what this whole thing is about, is seeking truth. And there you have it, folks. That was Dave from FlatEarthDave.com. That was a pretty interesting podcast, I think. Let me know what you think. You can make a comment on Spotify, and I can see those comments. You can make a comment on YouTube. I can see those. Or you can give me an email at truthseekers2012@gmail.com. So I would be happy to answer any emails or any questions. You can also get in touch with me on my website, KennyWilliamson.com, and there's a little thing you can fill out there and send it to me. So please check that out. Please like, share, all the above. I'm going to be having some t-shirts and some other stuff for sale off of my website, and they'll also be on Amazon if you're interested. Some for the ministry, and all the proceeds are going to go to support the ministry, just to pay for everything that I'm doing here, because it can get expensive using some of this stuff. So I'm trying to keep everything free advertisement free. It's for your enjoyment, because I know I personally don't like listening to advertisements. So anyway, to help keep that stuff free, I'm going to offer some things for sale, which will just kind of help pay for some stuff. So anyway, thanks for listening. God bless you. I hope this helped you. And if you need anything at all, just contact us. Thanks for listening.